Everything is changing right now. How we work, how we lead, and if you're a leader, you're probably feeling it. The uncertainty, the pressure, maybe even the exhaustion. I'm Richard Stokes, and this is Mojo Under Fire. This podcast is about those defining moments, the crucibles that either break leaders or forge them into the kind of magnetic forces others actually want to follow. When the old playbook stops working, when you realise you can't just work harder and something has to change, and that something is you. For the last 5 years, I've been having hundreds of conversations about how people find and keep their mojo, that quality that makes you successful, energetic, influential. But lately, those conversations have gone deeper because the challenges are bigger and the stakes are higher. So in this series, you're going to hear real stories from real leaders about their hardest moments and how they came through them. Not just what happened, but the truth of what it felt like, the approaches that actually worked, and the wisdom that they'll share with you if you were sitting across the table from them right now. These are conversations that will give you something you can actually use, a different way of thinking about your own challenges, tools you can apply, perspective that might shift how you lead. Because the best leadership development doesn't come from theory. It comes from learning how someone else navigated the fire and came out stronger. Today's guest is Davie Gowans. Davie is a visionary financial strategist, investor, and business mentor with shareholdings across multiple industries. After years of success in traditional business, Davie's focus has evolved towards ventures that serve a higher purpose, blended wealth, wellness, and conscious leadership. And it's this evolution that will major on today, what created it and how Davie has navigated a new course in life. Yes, the metaphor works, as Davie is also an avid sailor. The clues to his mission, his boat is called One Life. This is a conversation worth your time, and if it lands with you, do share it with another leader who might need to hear it. Okay, let's dive in. Davie Gowans, welcome to the Mojo podcast. Great to see you today. How are you doing?
Yes, very good, Richard. Thank you for inviting me along.
It's an absolute pleasure. We've known each other for a while, and I've had your name down as a guest for some time, and now is the perfect moment to have that conversation. So, Davie, out of 10 today, where do you find yourself? Where's your mojo out of 10 today?
Well, I'd like to say 10 because I'm optimistic, but actually I've got a little bit of man flu for the last few days, so I would say I'm about a 7.
Okay, so that physical aspect has kind of knocked you down a bit.
Yeah, it drains a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. And so, you said you'd like to say a 10. I get a sense you know where your mojo is high and is low. What does that word actually mean to you, mojo, Davie?
I would say the being in flow. When you're walking, you've got a vision, you know where you're going, you're working towards that. Things are working out for you, and you're in flow with the purpose that you've set yourself at that moment in time. So yeah, that's mojo for me.
So I love that.
Things work out, synchronicities happen, and you come closer to the vision that you're looking to create.
Right. Okay. So I get there's a sense of a purpose, and then the flow that's taking you towards that. It's, as you say, synchronicities happen. You're just meeting the right people at the right time. Things are happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's mojo. And do you get a sense of, I know you said today is a 7 out of 10. What supports you beyond obviously how you're physically feeling? What supports you to have a higher sense of mojo, more of that flow, more of that synchronicity?
I think being authentic, being yourself, so that you're not wearing a mask and living life, through other people's expectations, and really being yourself, and then trusting that what's coming is the right thing. So, and feeling into your body whenever you're making a decision, so that you're able to, make the right decision and be authentic to yourself and not worry about what other people are thinking. So that then allows you to work into your own plan. And whenever you're doing that, things just come. The universe delivers, and you get rid of those fears. You focus on what you want to achieve. Yeah, I think that brings the mojo up to a really high level. Looking after your body, looking after all different pillars of life and your relationships, your work, your spiritual, whatever you're interested in. Really, just having that balanced approach in life, so that it's not all about work, or it's not all about money. It's not all about relationships. So it's a balanced, for yourself also.
Love it. So, and there's so many themes in there that I know we're gonna unpack more as we go through the conversation today. And just to give listeners a bit of support here, what would be useful for someone listening now to know about you and maybe where you've come from to us meeting today for this episode so they can get the most out of this episode?
Yeah, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I've had many businesses. I built and sold a company 12 years ago, had the financial freedom, spent a lot of that money, and then realised I wanted to get back into business. I lost my purpose in life after doing that, and realising now to come round to actually working in business that's of service to people. So it's not just about making money, it's actually trying to change a bit of the world as well. So being of service and doing something different in leadership. So yeah, I guess I've been around that full circle. Financial freedom is also a big thing for me. I've always been working on that with a couple of different journeys to doing that and rebuilding back up. Yeah, in terms of people having their financial thermometer of what they think they're worth. That's something I've been really interested in. I've helped some of the men's groups here in Ibiza as well, working, helping people with their businesses, but from a financial aspect. And right now I'm working with 6 or 7 businesses where I'm a shareholder, and my idea is to mentor people and help them to grow the business, and then obviously we both get rewarded from it. But also the businesses I'm working in latterly has been more of service, which I guess we'll talk about later.
Yeah, so I get this sense of lots of cycles that you've kind of been through in life, and we are going to unpack a lot of this when we go through where these, even some of these crises points, some of these big changes, this evolution has kind of come from you, for you. And, I'm getting a lot of this sense of how people might experience you right now as a leader, this sense of clarity, purpose, authenticity. Has that always been the case? Has that always been the way you've shown up?
No, I mean through my career, I was an electrician right at the start of my career, living in Glasgow. I soon had a lot of ambition, and I soon, after my apprenticeship, I built up and worked in the office as a quantity surveyor, trained up as that, and I was very much in the career mode in my 20s, and I was working with contract law. I wasn't enjoying it so much. I really wasn't enjoying things in my late 20s. And I decided, well, if I don't enjoy it, then what do I want to do? So I took a year off and travelled the world. And I then realised that the world isn't, a bad place. It's not a dangerous place. Then you start to question, what have I been told in life? What are these places really dangerous? And I started to really think for myself more. So rather than being in the corporate ladder and working harder and harder, I thought, well, why don't I do this for myself? And coming back from those travels, started up a big electrical utility business and built that up within 7 years, and then sold it and became self-made millionaire and free. That was I kind of made it from there. So that was the early journey, and that was the kind of changes I had. But then that's when I hit the real change in life, I guess. I had this, a couple of million in the bank. There was probably a lot more to go. There was a lot more to come in terms of the deal, but things just started to go wrong, and it was pretty interesting. And it's almost like I thought I'd made it, but I had no more purpose. The purpose of building that company, looking after that amazing culture. I wrote a book about it as well, about how setting vision, setting purpose, setting a mission, being clear on the strategy, bringing the whole team in there as well, having a really good culture of everybody's worth it. Everybody that's involved in business, they're all part of the team. Nobody's better than anyone else. They just have different responsibilities. Built a really good culture, and then I wasn't the man anymore. Sold the company. I wasn't the man anymore. I just handed over the baby to someone else, and I lost all that purpose. And I didn't then turn that or change my purpose in life. And I went to Brazil. I had amazing times over there. I was traveling the world. It was amazing, but I'd lost that purpose. I'd lost the mojo, really. And I was kind of lost in that journey.
Oh, wow. So, thank you for giving us that arc of, a young man working in a fairly usual pattern, goes on a journey. We talk about the hero's journey a lot, finds that maybe what you've been told about life isn't quite true, makes your own decisions, builds up this amazing company, has all this, I guess, success, freedom, money. And then you found, actually, when you'd exited, now what? Was that the question?
It was, yeah. I mean, I thought I was living the I was living a life of luxury, but what I was doing is I was traveling places. I was coming back thinking, okay, how much is the credit card bill? And I was paying it, but I was actually paying away my wealth. And
Mm.
that's why now I'm focusing on wealth building. I'm focusing on, helping people to get out of the rat race, helping people to break away from the system. I've got a real kind of, you know, yeah, my mission, I guess, is to help people to live a better way, because I think the system is fucked, and it's not fair on people. People are working harder now, and there's a reason for that, because there's a system that people are working in, and I could see that when I had that freedom. But at that moment in time, I guess I was on a journey looking inward. When I was about late 30s, 40. I started traveling a lot. I started looking a lot more inwards, and going through this spiritual awakening, and through a spiritual journey of understanding what the world is about, because I had the freedom to do anything. So it allowed me to then realize, what is this rat race? Why does everyone need to work? There must be another way. Why are there billionaires out there where there's other poor people? There has to be another way. And that's why I started to really go through existential crisis as well, looking at why are we existing, and through all that, and that cycle. And it's pretty interesting, because in human design, I'm a 6'2", role model hermit, where part of it is when you get to 50, which I was 2 years ago, you start to turn into this role model, and actually the first 30 years is all about trial and error. The next, between 30 and 50, more or less, is all about looking inward. You're sitting on the roof, you're observing how the world is, and then when you round about 50, then the patterns on that human design profile is to then come out and start to show your wisdom to the world, and start to be of service. And it's funny, I'm only talking about this now in hindsight, because it's been the journey that I've been on. It's unbelievable, actually, how aligned it's been.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And human design, for those that don't know, I know you're way more schooled in it than I am, but this is essentially, well, tell us a bit about the background to human design.
It was actually downloaded by a guy, Aru, something, his name's similar to that, and in Ibiza. You got this download. It lines up with astrology. You have different charts based on exactly when you were born, where you were born, where the stars were. So there's a lot of astrology in it, but there's a lot of other aspects to it as well. I mean, I'm not a professional in that. I don't read charts. I just know what my chart was and what I was told, and how it really resonated. For me, everything is about resonance. If you feel it and you resonate with something, then you know it to be true. And for me, that's the only way to really look forward,
Yeah.
and make decisions based on what you know to be true, rather than what the mind is told. Because our minds have all been manipulated since we've been young. How we've been taught things, how we've been told not to do this, not to do that, out of fear. And parents are trying to look after their kids, but they're just passing on, fear-based approaches. And so I think in human design, it's about getting out of the mind and getting into the body and feeling more. But again, depending on what type you are, that will depend on how you respond to things, or how you make decisions. There's emotional, mine's a sacral response. So I'm able to make a decision quickly based on my sacral, whether I feel it's right. Get that gut feeling of whether it's right or wrong. And that's what I start to do. Start to just make decisions based on my body, rather than maybe some of the patterns I've had through life, especially corporate world, business world, work, money, money, money.
Yeah, let's dig into that a bit more, because I know, I work with hundreds of men around the world, and a big part of the challenge is getting out of the head, where all the thinking and all the value lives, and getting into the body, especially into the heart and into your knowing, into the gut, and things like meditation can help with that, and other journeys. But just take yourself back to when you weren't living from this place of knowing, when you weren't coming from there, when you were coming more from up here. What was that like for you?
Well, it's hard to think it was a different person,
Yeah.
but well, I guess, yeah, I was very much in the make money, have the best cars, it was very superficial, and that's the way we'd been taught. That's, make money, and I always wanted this freedom. I don't know where it comes from really, but I've always wanted this freedom to do what I want. So I was always trying to make money, because I wanted to just travel the world. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to be free. So that's something that's really inherent in me to create that freedom. But certainly I was very stuck in my ways. I was very clear what I wanted to make money with the business. I pushed everybody. I was quite demanding, but also very fair and rewarding to people. And for me, it was about making money to have a good life and buy things. But I was very much in the trap. I wasn't spiritual at all. I was just there trying to make money.
And I guess that sense of what Mojo means to you now versus then probably quite different. Probably more
Yes.
of the, as you say, more of the fear, less of the trust, or even belief in the self. Because you made that point about that journey inward that you went on in your evolution was, and I'm getting the sense of this. Here's the outward success, like the car, the holiday. I know you're also a shareholder in Rangers Football Club at one point, if I'm not mistaken. So lots of these things going on, and then this move inward. And David, this kind of, and I know this turning point. I think there were several points along this road. You've talked about journeying to places like Brazil. Just tell us about maybe some of those key points in your journey, and any. I'm also always interested in whether mentors, coaches, people who supported you on that journey as well. Tell us about that.
I mean, first of all, from a business side, I had a really good mentor, and it showed me how to run the company from the balcony. So rather than being involved in everything, you're sitting on the balcony, you're looking down at the shop floor, and you can then make decisions. And then by giving people, the opportunity to grow and learn themselves and take the actions themselves and holding them accountable, you can then start to really build the business more. So that was a really big changing point for me in how I turned a £4.5 million company into a 15 million company in 2 years, and then we eventually sold it. So that gave me a lot of, about letting go, basically, of I don't need to keep micromanaging everything. Actually, by letting go and empowering people, that made a big difference. So yeah, that's kind of what I've done always in my career. I guess if we go back to look at the life cycle of when I sold the company, I wasn't the man anymore. Started to just work out what am I going to do. I don't want to go back and work anymore because I've made it. Is that what I tried to do? But I didn't have the financial sense to really build from there. So the spiritual journey was more. I went to Brazil, I did ayahuasca, and that really
Okay.
opened up my eyes to everything. That's when I went through the existential crisis, thinking, what are we here for? Because I started to see at that time, it was too early in my spiritual journey at that point, but I started to see there's something else here. Where were we before we came to this world? Is the history of the world true? What about the pyramids? And what about, there's so many questions that didn't make sense. And I thought, we're living in this, it's almost living in this matrix of, or a lot of people would say we're living in an illusion. So I started to really go down that road without understanding more of my own being, I guess. So it was really difficult at that point. And then eventually I came back. I thought, right, I need to start earning money again. I need to start getting involved. And I jumped back into business and had a couple of different businesses I worked with, co-created, built up, and that kind of put a bit more, I guess, purpose back in my life as well.
And I'm really pleased you talk about that business aspect, and that that importance of that business mentor, as you said, give you that perspective. I love that idea of be in the balcony, not on the dance floor. Trust what's going on down there. So when you came back, you'd started this journey, you'd done ceremony, very powerful, obviously with using a plant like ayahuasca. Did you recognize yourself as a different leader or business owner in that the pre the spiritual awakening and the post?
Yeah. You realize it's more about, our life is more about love than separation that you're kind of taught. Everyone's taught about separation, don't like this person, don't like that person, this group are doing this and we want to fight these people. I think that's what we're all taught through news, if you still watch news. So I started to realize it's more about love, because you had that connection. I was doing a lot of meditation and yoga as well at that time. Yeah, it then meant that decisions I would have made before, which was all about me and all about me making more money, that started to change, where it was about, well, collectively we can, and That's why I've always had business partners as well, where we can share the rewards and also grow the business together. So yeah, that certainly changed when I became more enlightened in that way. But it was only really recently, in a more recent journey, in the last couple of years, that I've started to let go of a lot of things and then really changed from a leader of, get things done, more into empowerment and how we can lead to give back and be more loving and caring about how we get involved in business and how both spirituality, business, and money can still all be accepted together.
And I get this sense, from your story, this, I talked about an evolution in the intro, and it is this evolution of letting go and letting go and letting go. What has helped you with that? Because for me, this when I talk about things like surrender isn't giving up; it is letting go. And I get this sense of surrender to life, to the universe's plan for you. What's helped you get that level of? What comes to me is always trust. There needs to be a trust, probably in self and in others. What's helped you get that from and you talked about your upbringing, like many of our upbringings, there's not a lot of trust. It's not, don't trust that person in business. Don't trust that person over there because they're out to get you, out to screw you somehow. But you've let go of that. What's supported you with that?
I think things weren't in flow. I didn't have the mojo because I was still fighting too hard or trying too hard to maintain. There was a particular business that I had a few years ago, and there was problems with myself and the partner. We just weren't aligned anymore, and it was really tough to get out of that. But I still kept trying to make it happen, and then eventually, when I just let go, we eventually managed to separate and move on. But it was a really kind of time almost that was kind of stuck in there, and I thought, why is this happening? I started to really question. So I thought, well, I need to start, set my boundaries, set what I'm going to do, start doing things differently. And I just started to let go, and then other opportunities came, things worked out, and really by, I guess, going with the flow and being in your mojo and trusting that the universe is still going to deliver, I started to see that, well, actually, by letting go of letting go of trying to make the money, trying to always do the old ways or old business decisions, or just let go of that and see what comes, see what opportunities come, and then make a decision based on that. So yeah, I started to let go of a lot, even in relationships a couple of years ago, and also just other responsibilities I had in life that I just thought, well, this isn't serving me. I really just looked back and thought, right, what's working and what's not. And I made some big tough decisions, but it then meant that I was then properly free, because whenever you're trying to achieve, and you try and make this extra money, you're putting yourself under pressure that you don't always need to do it that way to have the success. By letting go, obviously having your vision is very important and knowing where you want to get to, but you don't always need to work so hard. You just need to let go a little bit and then let the opportunities come. So I started to trust, actually, as you said, and I went away to Sri Lanka for 4 weeks, actually, in December, January. It was amazing, and I started to build a plan for the year. Right at the first few days, it didn't work out. Things were not working with a couple of the projects I was on, and I thought, right, just let go, see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? Always look at the worst scenario, and then build your expectation on that, and everything else is a bonus. And I've done that, and I still have a lot. I didn't need these things, and I thought, why am I always trying to make it work? So I just thought, what do I really want? I want to work in things that I'm happy all the time, that I'm content all the time. So then I decided to go to Goa for a month, and I was checking in with work, but I was giving a lot of time to myself, and I was listening to an audiobook about letting go, and I just thought, I'm letting go of everything. And I just decided I don't need anything. If I have no income when I come back or whatever, then I'll be fine. But then new opportunities came, bigger than I expected, and more wealth came more than I expected. And just by letting go and trusting, really made a difference. But you've got to really trust. You can't just say, I'm going to try this and hope it works, because you're not really letting go. And also with relationships, and just realizing that actually the happiness, I guess we're moving into something else, but the happiness is already within you. The love is already within you. So you don't need to look for it outside. And that's something I learned a long time ago when I had all the wealth and all the money that happen doesn't make you happy, and that was so true. So living it a different way now.
Wow. And look at, all those lessons you've learned, and some of them the hard way, have come back to support you. I get a sense in this, real, as you say, real true letting go, that being prepared. I'm not just trying it, I am fully. I get this real sense of a real commitment, Davie. And for me, commitment is when you choose not to have any more choice. You chose, I'm letting go of all of this, and whatever happens will be fine. And then you find yourself in more abundance because you've chosen to let go of something that maybe wasn't serving you so well, and you've moved into maybe another phase of that development. And also, I get the other thing that came to me was a real sense of responsibility, of you taking responsibility. Tell me a bit about what that means to you, responsibility.
I mean, I've always been the responsible one in the family. I've always wanted to take the leadership role because I guess I feel I know best. So I've always thought I'll sort it, I'll do it, and or maybe even grown up in a younger life of maybe I just need to take more responsibility for what's going on around me and for my own kind of success. I guess there was that kind of pressure that I thought, well, I don't want to live in a poor area in Glasgow all the time, so I've got to start making it for myself. My parents always try their best, but when you grow up in these areas, it's not so easy. So I always thought if I want to get out of this, I need to be more responsible. But then I end up doing the opposite. I take on too much responsibility, because I can handle a lot of pressure. I can handle a lot. And it was only recently, the last few years, when I've just thought, no, I don't want any responsibility. And I start, because that's really a way of self-love, to actually, you're not responsible for other people. Okay, if you've got children or your partner, then of course you're responsible for them till a certain time, and then you've got to let them be responsible for themselves. But yeah, I think that was a big part of me to think, no, well, I want to just be loving to myself, and I'm not responsible for taking care of people, and then doing it in a loving way to let them kind of learn for themselves.
Love that. And I always get this sense of there's a difference between being responsible for, and as you said, we've got children, for example, we certainly are responsible for, and there's responsible to. And you can be responsible to people around you, maybe employees and shareholders and that sort of thing, but you're not, as you say, if you step into being responsible for them, you're kind of holding it all, aren't you? Kind of all for them, and all the experience and all the life lessons may not get a chance to live them because you're kind of taking it that way. And I see that sense of the evolution, again, you as a leader, just letting go. I need to let go of what I'm holding on to.
Yeah, but it's then empowering them. You can still show them the way. People need to learn for themselves, and I think that's the time we're moving into. People are going to have a lot more of their own self-authority, where the decisions in their life is up to them. People can't be victims. People can't be, reliant on other people. And I think for me, it's now about helping people, to showing people, being that role model, I guess, on you can make your own decisions. You have the power within you already. You can learn from other people, and that's the way to move forward, really, in anything. So in leadership and business, it's about empowering people, showing them what they can do actually, and letting them then move on and do that. And of course, if in business you're responsible for the employees, you're responsible for the success of the business. But you still need to, still better to, in my opinion, to empower people to let them have that shared vision and then move on and learn by the mistakes. Because if you don't, you're always going to be hit for it. You're always going to be responsible, and you're not really going to create that freedom for yourself.
So I'm getting this sense of this newer leadership philosophy that you've got now about this sense of empowerment. And for leaders listening, everyone's looking for ideas and tips and tools. What else would you offer that really helps with this idea of empowerment for teams, as you say? Because this is the direction of travel. This is what people are going to need to be more comfortable with. What tips would you offer in that?
Well, what I learned many years ago, and I actually wrote it in my book, design your destiny. Which I mean, I wrote it just to write the book. I didn't try and sell it or anything, but it was really nice. Actually, just recently, very recently, with several businesses I'm working on, I started to put this exercise in place. And really, the first thing is authenticity. So to be a leader, in my opinion, leaders are all different. Different ways. Someone might be a kick up the backside, other people might be a hug. And that's people do it different ways. People need to be led in different ways. So the first thing is being authentic, because if you're not authentic, people can see through it. If you're wearing a mask and you try and lead from a certain way, and it's not really your true authentic way, then you're not going to be able to sustain that, and people are going to see right through it. So the first thing is to be authentic in yourself, and coming from inside, coming from the heart, and coming from who you know yourself to be, rather than who you thought you might have been before. So knowing yourself first and foremost, being authentic, and then having a vision. So what is the vision? What's the purpose of your business, of your project? What's your mission? What do you want to achieve in the next 2 or 3 years? And then, what's the mission of the existence of that business? And then what's your vision? For example, in 1 year time, paint a picture of this is how it's going to look in all aspects, in terms of where the business is, who the customers are, where the financials are, where the team is, how you're feeling about it, where your offices are, etc., etc. So really have a clear vision of maybe 1 year and 3 year, and then get your people. So the really important thing is get your people to buy into that, actually get them to help you to create this vision. So you already have the vision, but for them to really buy into it, you need to allow them to also create the vision. It's a shared vision, and then it's your job as a leader to then bring the right people into and the right strategy to then build that vision, or build the business towards that vision. And then once you're really clear on that, with any management you have or other leaders, is to be really clear on what their roles and responsibilities are, what they need to do to get to that vision, and then just make them, having some KPIs, having some simple management reports that you can see how they're doing, and just let them get on with it, and also help them along the way. And if it's not working, you work out why it's not working, but you try to empower that person to do that. So that's the kind of approaches I've always taken.
Yeah, I love it. So there's this, leading from authenticity, and I get that from the inside out, being the true you. That the vision. What I love about we talked about the vision, was the buy-in aspect of it as well, Davie, because often vision is imposed, mission is imposed, but where buy-in, I think, comes really potent is when there's transparency and inclusion. That's when buy-in really starts to happen in my experience. And then just the clarity. This is the expectation. This is what we want you to do. I'm going to set you up for that role, for that success, was the sense that I got. And all very, simple, clear, yet not so many people are leading from these kinds of places, especially, I think I go straight to your first point, from the authentic. And that can be maybe that's the starting point of anybody listening, is like, how can I truly step into my own authentic leadership? And just, David, let's take a little jump from there, because I want to talk about what you're doing now with New Earth Frequency, which is, given your background as, from electrician, I know you're involved in the whiskey business for many years, and now this, again, quite a jump, quite an evolution. Tell us a bit about New Earth Frequency, and link that to your own kind of leadership of it.
Yeah. I'll go into that in a second, but just it's interesting you mentioned the whiskey company, because that's a business I had for many years, and I still have many assets from that. But I also realised that alcohol is not really beneficial to your well-being. And being Scottish and whiskey, it wasn't so easy to give up alcohol, and I have in most ways. I still have a drink now and again, but I realised that's not who I want to be. It's not really going to help my mojo. It's not going to, it's a toxic drink. So funny enough, closed that business, and as I was mentioning earlier, different synchronicities came. I then met someone here in Ibiza who'd already created a non-alcoholic drinks brand, which we're actually bottling next week. So it'll be interesting. It's called Nomadic Spirit. So it was really interesting how it's a non-alcoholic drink, it's an aperitivo, And it's so interesting how once I made that decision to really stop, drinking alcohol as much, or even socially, then have this new business opportunity, which is in the new field of non-alcoholic drinks and the substitutes. So that's one of the things where when I let go of needing to have this Scottish attachment to the alcohol, my late father, who was also connected with that business as well, and he actually died the last day of the financial year. So in the following year, I closed the business. I just thought, this isn't me anymore, and making that decision. So, and that's that authenticity. I thought, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't want to be dealing with whiskey. So that was interesting. And then the door opened for this non-alcoholic drinks brand, which could be a nice, successful business, but it also feels more aligned and feels more real to be pushing that than whiskey. And everybody can do what they want to do, but for me, it wasn't the right thing. So that was an interesting point. But yeah, for the New Earth frequency, I'd been looking for, especially when I was in India more recently, I was thinking, right, I need to give back. I know I need to be of service. I need to help humanity. I need to help people. And I built a financial freedom course online. I created all that. I was helping a lot of the gents here in Ibiza with business advice and financial advice. But I still thought, this isn't it. There's something bigger. I know there's something big there where I have to help humanity. And, the idea wasn't clear to me. I was trying to push this business on the financial freedom. I did the course. I started working with different people, but I still thought it's not right. It wasn't feeling aligned, and it wasn't feeling that was a purpose. So I did totally let go. But then when I came back from India, I got almost downloaded this blueprint using AI as well. I kind of back and forward with questions, and I started getting in a lot more detail about, I guess the main purpose that I always had was, I've been fortunate. I've made the right decisions. I've been in the right places. I've made good money with business. I've created that freedom, but I also watch a lot of my colleagues and peers and friends and other people in society that are struggling. And I thought, it shouldn't be this way. There needs to be a disruption in how things are. And for me, it wasn't about fighting the system, fighting the governments or the banks or whoever's making decisions. It was more about, how can we create our own way of being? How can we, be more healthy? How can we, stay away from the news and all the fear? And how can we actually know ourselves and be ourselves? And, that's what it started to come in, a real clear kind of vision of, well, this is what it's going to look like. And I had this idea where we would have an online platform, an online community, where it would be a lot of different facilitators and other wellness teachers who would do the teaching. But I would actually use my business, experience and knowledge on structure to actually build this platform and then build retreats and events. But also knew that I wasn't the one to be running it, because I knew that I like to be the visionary. I like to be the strategist. But I need a team to do it. So I kind of downloaded that, I sat it to the side. I thought, I'm going to wait and see what comes. I need partners. I need that, but I'm sure the universe will deliver. And then it did. I met Michael a couple of times through the gents group. He had a few different experiences as well, a lot of alignment and synchronicities again on what he was looking to do. Before the summer, we decided, well, let's just see how this goes. I want to go sailing over the summer. He was also going off the island, and we thought, let's wait until after the summer. We can see how it's going. Maybe we can start looking at retreats, etc. But at the moment, it's not clear yet what's meant to happen. And then he had a download a couple of months later in June. He came over to Ibiza. We met, and yeah, we decided to start the New Earth Frequency, which is a global online platform for spiritual awakening, for consciousness, for even people to learn how to become their own inner channel, and really be in touch with their self, basically. And by doing that and living in this more harmonious, loving way, then we don't need all the craziness in the world. So the idea is that we've already ran an event in August, which was a kind of pop-up event with a lot of breathwork practitioners, yoga, meditation. We had a lot of channelers coming over, and they were channeling different entities, different beings. And when you look at the world and the craziness that's going on, and for me, are there aliens out there? Are there other beings? Who knows? Of course, you look at history. I'm actually going to Egypt next week for the first time ever.
Right.
It's a miracle how they actually built these things. So there must be something else out there. And for me, there was a lot more seeing and believing and having resonance that we actually come from somewhere else. We're actually, what happened before we arrived on this earth? When you ask these questions, maybe years ago, I would just think, well, the news is the news. It tells the truth, but it doesn't. For me, there's got to be something else. And so it's really interesting when we meet these facilitators who are really spiritual, who some of them are channeling, different entities, and it's real to them. What we're trying to build what we're building is a platform where facilitators can show their gift of channeling, of breathwork, of multidimensional coaching or quantum healing. A lot of healing works in that. And then the community members who join can then learn from these people. So, you can come, you can just do breath work because you think the other stuff's a bit too woo. Or you can dive right in because you resonate, and it's all about resonance. It's all about, and it just gives people a chance to actually become more of themselves. And we're opening up a retreat centre here in Ibiza, and then the idea is that we work with other collaborators to open up other retreat centres across the world. So that as the madness in the world continues, or hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, then there is a place, a sanctuary where people can meet and actually feel that connection with themselves, and then make those decisions from themselves, that inner authority as well. And even human design talks about it, and 2027 is a big year for that. There's a lot of change in humanity, there's a lot of chaos, but people actually start to have that self-authority to live life their own way.
Yeah.
So it's a really, and for me, that was the purpose. The purpose came to me because I let go. I waited. I had a kind of download of how a business would structure in that way, but I waited to see, what the team would come. We've got a really good team, and we're looking to build it quite quickly over the coming months.
Fabulous. And all the details will be in the show notes. So if that strikes a chord, please do find out more. And Dave, I'm just really taken by that, through the process of letting go, which is certainly a theme here. You've gone from, electrician, business owner, whiskey business owner, to now, this creator of this platform, which is, I can only imagine, well, I don't know when you would have seen yourself in this sort of position, but I appreciate you probably didn't. It's just come through a series of downloads and synchronicities of being in flow, of finding your mojo, in my kind of language, that's allowed this to happen for you.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, this is about, of course, we will make a lot of money if we build a big platform, but it's more about the resonance. When we had this event in Ibiza a couple of months ago, it was just so beautiful to meet people and just have a really nice atmosphere and a loving connection. It was amazing, and that's the way we should live as humans. You're at your happiest when you're connecting positively with people. And that's the way we should be. So why can we not? So for me, this is about purpose. It's about waking people up. It's about, people will resonate with it. People will think, oh, that's a lot of rubbish, these hippies or whatever, these weirdos. People will think that's fine. That's the way I would have thought a long time ago. But then there will be other people that resonate and think, do you know what? There must be something else there. That what's happening doesn't feel right. There must be something else out there. What I've been told up to now is not true. There must be something else out there. And this is just a way for people to make their own decisions, but to come and do yoga, do breath work, do meditation. They can learn how to be channelers, and there'll be a lot of different workshops, a lot of different retreats that are ran. And so far, people who are, I guess, awake to that are the ones that are resonating and coming at the moment. But it's also in the mainstream. I don't expect there to be a big percentage uptake in the world, but even just a few percent of the world population looking to, come inward, to be self-aware and have their own self-authority to make decisions, then people start to live and be a lot happier.
Yeah, and in there is that a sense of leadership. Coming back to the sort of the key thing, that self-leadership, and this is what I was on offer. And just sort of coming to a bit of a wrap for today, but what would be your, again, leaders listening today, what would be your key wisdom or even wish for a leader listening today? And you've talked a lot about that, a sense of awakening, a sense of being more connected. What would you like to leave people with?
I think be of service, because that's where you'll get the most joy. You can see the bank balance going up. I've been through that journey. You see that going up and you think I've made it, but it really comes to being of service. If you run a business and you're good to your people, then you get a lot of joy because you have that kind of power and control where you can pay more. So it's about giving back. The more you give, the more you receive, and the joy comes from giving. So if you're a leader and you're in that, you built something up and you've got that opportunity, then the more you give, then you're going to get that joy, which you can't really get from buying anything or spending money. So that would be the main thing, I think, just to give and feel the joy from being able to help other people to on their journey.
Beautiful, Davie. What an amazing, powerful, well-learned message to leave everyone with at the end of the podcast today. So Davie Gowans, thank you so much for joining the Mojo podcast today. As I said, all the details will be in the show notes. Find out more about New Earth Frequency and Nomad Spirits, which is coming out shortly.
Nomadic Spirit.
Nomadic Spirit, which is coming out very, very shortly. Davie, great to see you.